Thank you all so much for being here at the Off the Record stage. So the first part of the Off the Record stage today was about Black entrepreneurship, startups, VCs, how to succeed, break glass ceilings, what have you. And the second part of the day is focused on social justice. So how is technology being utilized or not utilized effectively enough in support of human rights and the advancements of marginalized people across the world? This is a session coming up that I'm particularly excited about, and so it's great to see so many people in the room as well. How are we utilizing tech to advance the human rights of migrants and refugees, and what potential is there within the tech industry and beyond to make sure that migrants and refugees receive the support, care, and solidarity that they deserve from all of us? So to help us have this conversation, we have Emmanuel Achiri, Kim Smolter, and Patricia Munatsi.
Hello. It's really exciting to see all of you here today. I think that as panelists we would also try to do our best to keep this as exciting and also to give you some space for questions and answers at the end of our talk. So I think we really are delving into a critical debate, a critical topic. We have basically three things we want to talk about. The first is how the UK's immigration policies are racist, but also how tech and AI has been weaponized to, gatekeep against black migrants, but also people of African descent and people who are brown and other racialized communities. But also, very importantly, we want to focus as well on how tech can be used as a tool to empower racialized communities. As the moderator, I am Emmanuel Achiri. I am one of the policy and advocacy advisors of the European Network Against Racism, and I focus on the intersection between migration and law enforcement. To my right, we have Kim Smolter, who is the director of the European Network Against Racism. Welcome, Kim.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And to my left, we have Patricia Munatsi, who is the policy lead at the Irish Network Against Racism. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for having me.
Thank you. Around 2017, the Windrush scandal, or at least details about the Windrush scandal, began to emerge. And due to pressure from the public, the audience, and the backlash that ensued, a commission there was a report was commissioned by the Home Secretary at the time, Sajid Javid, to inquire about what happened with the Windrush scandal. And just for context, the Windrush scandal was this period where we discovered collectively as a community that people of black and brown descent had been detained, deported, and deprived of their rights. And when this report came out, it concluded that the Windrush scandal it wasn't just simply negligence or mistake. It was actually it was based on deep-rooted racism within the UK's racist immigration policies. And I would like to read a quote from this report, which basically stated that during the period 1950 to 1981, every single piece of immigration or citizenship legislation was designed, at least in part, to reduce the number of people with black or brown skin who were permitted to live and work in the UK. Mind you, these are at the leaked parts of the document because the report has never really been fully disclosed, which is, I think we can all know why it's never really been fully disclosed to all of us. But even since this period, the immigration policies have not changed. We still see a lot of racialization. We still see a lot of discrimination. And as a matter of fact, we have two stark reminders. One of them is the recent deal by the UK government with Rwanda to send back black and brown migrants to a regime, an authoritarian regime, a regime which has been declared by several UN rights bodies, but also by civil society organizations as unsafe for refugees and asylum seekers. Just recently as well, I think this was yesterday, we got reports that migrants were still going to be sent to the BB Stockholm. That's literally warehousing people, and we all know the kinds of people who are going to be warehoused or who have been warehoused on the BB Stockholm. But it doesn't end at only these policies, but how much the UK government, but also the European member states, the institutions as well globally have been investing in technology as a way of surveying people of black and brown descent and how this affects them. And this brings me to the first question, which I would like to pose to Patricia. Given the context within which we are currently, and also the rapid advancement of technology and of course AI and different kinds of softwares, I would really like to know from your perspective, what concrete examples do we have of technology being used to keep black and brown migrants, but also people of African descent, of course in the United Kingdom, but across Europe and globally as well?
Yes, thank you very much, Emmanuel. I think my starting point will be, we live in a digital world. Technology is everywhere, and that's an exciting point for everyone when you talk about technology. That there are immense benefits that comes with technology. It could benefit communities. I have access to vital information at the click of a button. You could equitable health outcomes for communities. However, there are also risks that are associated with technology. Technology is always improving and at a faster rate that we can keep up with that. However, there are serious human rights and ethical issues that arise with that. Across the world, the use of AI and AI applications has been ahead of, and research speaks to that. Facial recognition technology has been used by police and private companies with serious human rights implications and fundamental rights in terms of right to privacy, right to justice, liberty, and employment. So, the use of facial recognition technology has real and significant potentials, to strengthen or enhance the already existing structural inequities that exist in society. Another serious issue, looking at people of African descent, and other ethnic minority communities, is the use of technology to monitor and govern ethnic minority communities here in the UK and in Europe and in the diaspora. And this leads to over-policing of ethnic minority communities, and this leads to, unfair arrest and detention of black communities. The use of AI is also part of recruiting and hiring, which is an area that I'm also passionate about when it comes to issues of equitable access, to employment opportunities and processes and outcomes in terms of sifting applications before they're seen by a person. So the use of AI-driven systems can enhance, patterns of discrimination that already exist, because, AI databases are designed and are tested on a specific, data set. And if, people of ethnic minority background and people of African descent are not present as a test to test those data sets, obviously, the biases and, existing, racial discrimination patterns will also be reflected in that technology. So, to be honest with you, and this is what I think professionally, that it's easy to blame technology for societal challenges, but we have had societal issues when it comes to human rights, equality and non-discrimination long before technology gained currents. What technology has done is to enhance and bring to the forefront the existing structural and institutional discrimination and racism that already exists. So if you were to ask me a question in terms of where do we go as a society, how do we solve this, I think first we have a human problem that only us can as humans can solve. How do we do that? We need to ensure there is equality and there's diversity and inclusion in the people that design this technology, that design these algorithms. However, we have been here for so long when we talk about equality, diversity and inclusion, and I think it has become a buzzwords that don't mean anything when it comes to the actual work that needs to be done. So I can only imagine I myself as a young black woman from Zimbabwe, I can imagine the potential that artificial intelligence has if it works right. I can only imagine the benefits that comes with that, in terms of access to vital information, in terms of, vaccines being developed quicker, in terms of people getting screened earlier so that they get the help that they need, in terms of ensuring that immigrants and people of African descent have equitable access to opportunities in terms of jobs. So I think that the key thing is that technology must always, the central issue is that technology must always be for the people, not against people. And how do we get there? I think that we need to fix first the societal issues that already exist in terms of access, equitable access to opportunities. And we need to get ethnic minority communities in the right places and to be able to have the power to make decisions when it comes to how artificial intelligence and applications are designed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Just before I jump to Kim, I just really want to highlight one of the things that you said and get back to you if you could, in maybe 30, 40 seconds, maybe highlight, especially as a young black woman, what specific issues, discrimination, how is discrimination perhaps, enhanced for young black women or for women of color or racialized communities?
I think with technology, the thing is I think we all saw at the height of the pandemic how technology in the wrong hands, can be a powerful weapon, utilized, by the far right. We saw the growth of the far right in Europe, how they could change videos, deep fakes, you could barely tell the difference, and how those videos were put online and spread like wildfire, and then that led to demonstrations, targeting ethnic minority communities, people of African descent. And I think that technology really needs to be regulated, and human rights must be at the center of that. And there's this myth that human rights are an enemy of technological advancement and progress, but I'm here to tell you that's absolutely not true. Human rights will ensure that technology is fit for purpose and it benefits everybody, including black women as myself, including people of ethnic minority backgrounds, who were historically disadvantaged. So I think technology can be a good thing if it works properly.
All right, thank you so much, Patricia. And I'm turning to Kim and really picking up from where Patricia ended in terms of how can technology be used as a way to empower racialized communities, of course, in the UK, in Europe, and globally, but also how can we mitigate, some of the inherent biases that currently are in technology or in AI as well.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And indeed, I think what Patricia highlights is really important. So we have, technology is agnostic. So technology can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And it's really important that the human dimension isn't forgotten in order to ensure that we actually have people which are thinking and acting with intent. And I think that's one of the problems that we're seeing with a lot of the current uses of artificial intelligence. It's sort of a bit of a laissez-faire, we'll try, we'll see, maybe we'll go, maybe it won't work. And then we see very disastrous outcomes. And we really see very disastrous outcomes in many different countries. I want to kind of highlight another example for the doomsday scenario of the Netherlands, where you had kind of a different databases which were being used and interconnected in ways that were not intended, and which led to the unintended consequence of people being deprived of their rights to social benefits, having their children being taken away, and out of the 16,000 people which were affected by it, most of the people which were affected by it were people of racialized origins. And the reason for that was because it was using a police database which had a bias built straight into it, and at the same time using a social benefits database that should never have been connected, and the artificial intelligence made a very unfortunate connection that those who are likely to cause more social benefit frauds were those of racialized origins. And that's, I think, highlights the point of the issue here. We have technology which can be used for good, but it can also be very easily used for bad, or it can very easily have unintended consequences. And I think here, one of the important answers to your question is, in fact, the responsibility that we have with the use of these technologies, and the responsibility of those who are designing and deploying those technologies, that they have a strong moral responsibility, not just an economic one, not just one about innovation, because the technology that will be used might be used for one purpose, but further down the line they might be used for another purpose. And we have to kind of start being in a world where we're actually considering and anticipating what future use cases might actually be. And at the moment, I think we're still very much in, I'm designing my little tool, and my little tool is very good, and it will never be used for something else. But we know that actually the strength and the power of artificial intelligence is connecting tools which were never intended to be together and learning new things about it. Sometimes for great things, but sometimes for negative things. Now, if you focus then on kind of what technology can do, what kind of good it can actually bring to racialized minorities, I think we have some fantastic examples of technology being actually very useful and very beneficial to highlight the lived experiences of migrants, to highlight the challenges that they face of humanizing a population which very often is left behind and is left behind statistics. We see very much migrants as a statistic that has to be solved somehow. It's a challenge that has to be solved. And yet, and I'll take actually, the Black Lives Matter, the fact that we have Black Tech Fest, the fact that D&I programs all came about, it came about thanks to technology in large part and thanks to social media being able to humanize and to present what happened to George Floyd and actually accelerate the pace of the indignation that takes place. And I think that's one of the great aspects of technology, that it can indeed be used and accelerated for bad, but it can also be used and accelerated for good. It can also be used and accelerated to show, when human rights violations are taking place, to show what actually is the experience that people have when they're being asked, to go to 10 different offices to get papers, when they're being refused access to the employment and labor market, and the impact that it has on their lives, in essence. So I think all of these things are really important. Another example I wanted to highlight is also the ability that technology can to actually provide to migrants in particular just-in-time information that's really important for them to understand what their rights are, what they can have access to, and they can help to also connect and to also showcase what they're actually going through. And I think apps like the City Rights app, which is organized by the City Rights Initiative, or the Voice app in Cyprus are really great examples of tools which are being deployed so that migrants can actually have access in one small app to all the vital information that they would otherwise not have had to. And I think the ability that technology has to actually make those things, to make lives easier, I think these are really important things that we need to be encouraging and highlighting. And I think, we're in a room here full of tech leaders, of tech experts, of the people who are essentially the architects and the designers of the future digital economy and the future digital society. And I think it's really important for those who are here to understand that there is also that amazing opportunity, that amazing responsibility to ensure that the tools that are going to be deployed tomorrow are tools which are also thinking about the broader social impact, the broader societal impact that they may have. And I think we don't do enough of that when we're designing things, because we're very much chasing after revenue, very much chasing after income, but there's also a very strong societal element to this. And I think digital economy can potentially be, helping us to move towards a better future, but only if we do it with intent and only if we really take into account the possible risks that are involved with that.
Thank you so much, Kim, for really putting that into context. And I would also really just want to highlight, because you did mention two apps, the Civil Rights app by the Civil Rights Initiative, and of course there's the app that was developed by Voice Cyprus as well, migrant students in the northern part of Cyprus. But there is also the Glitch app, which works to end online violence, but also digital misconduct. And so I think these are like concrete examples where you have black communities and racialized communities seizing the initiative. But then I think one really critical question I would like to ask, we live in a capitalist society, whether we like it or not, and that is a reality. And I think for young racialized tech entrepreneurs, the market can really be a cruel place. And so how would you advise young tech entrepreneurs, while competing in a really very aggressive marketplace, which oftentimes doesn't take into consideration some of the issues which we have raised here? How would you advise them to be able to compete, but at the same time to really take into consideration the human rights, aspects of developing applications, or like also trying to, in these applications to ensure that racialized communities are also empowered? I would like to give each of you maybe like 30 to 45 seconds. I know it's quite short, but I also want to give our audience like a couple of minutes to also share some insights or to ask some questions. So, Kim?
Yeah, okay, 30 to 45 seconds. I think one of the things which is important is to highlight just how important you are And I think it really to really highlight how important it is that in the tech community, a tech sector which is underperforming when it comes to diversity indicators. It is one of the worst performing economic sectors when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And I think one of the things is, it is so important that you stay in the room that you're in. It might be tough, but actually we have so few of us that are helping to design these new technologies and these types of things. It is incredibly important that you stay in the room and that you stay in that place and that you use your voice and your lived experience and your unique perspective to make sure that these tools are being designed taking into account our lived experiences, because very often we are completely forgotten from that communication. We at ENAR are also looking at this. One of the things which I'm very excited about is an initiative which our foundation is leading, which is called Spark, which is all about creating pan-European professional networks together in places where we are underrepresented. And I think tech is one of the places where we're very much underrepresented. And I think the more we connect with one another, the more we support one another, the more we mentor each other, and the more we talk about the kinds of experiences that we have in place, the more we can actually affect change. And we're not just talking to the professionals, we also as ENAR are also working and trying to connect with companies which are also interested in doing this journey with us through our Equal at Work program. And I think it's those kinds of collaborations and working together and making sure that we claim the space and that we hold on to the space that will lead to positive impact and positive change moving forward.
Thank you very much, Kim. Patricia, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that has perpetuated inequalities and further entrenched, racism and discrimination is, uncensored narratives that have been told, by other people on behalf of us and our communities and what we have gone through as a people. So I think that, if you good at designing apps, I think it's important to really stick to it. And like Kim has said, put our experiences into it. We have been forgotten, and we have given, companies and other people the power to tell our stories. And I think it's time that we take back that power and we uncensor those narratives. And I think with inequalities, there is a game of rewriting history, to suit a certain narratives. And we say today, we are taking back the power using technology to be able to advance a correct narrative that comes from us. And as people who live in the diasporas, I always say that, there are people who live in the shadows, untold stories. It's time to tell your story. So continue with the work that you do. Human rights do matter. And if we have learned anything in the pandemic, it's that we can't afford to get it wrong again. Technology is too powerful for it to be designed by one specific group for a specific reason. So we should all get involved, and I think that's absolutely important. You have a higher calling to be able to make a world a better place, and why not do it yourselves? So thank you.
Thank you. So change the narrative, occupy the space, and Kim says stay in the room and connect with one another. And of course we have our audience here in the room, and I would like to ask if there are any questions for our panelists, or perhaps you have other suggestions, concrete examples where you've seen how tech can be used to empower racialized communities.
Hi, my name is Nachi. I'm a product manager at BlackRock. So I have both a comment and a question, and I wanted to hear what your thoughts are. So as mentioned, I work at BlackRock, so I am the only immigrant right now in my office in terms of the team that I work in. And I find that I have very specific challenges, or there's nuances in the challenges that I experience. For example, I don't think my teammates would understand if I said I have family visiting me for 3 months and I need additional flexibility. This is just a random example. And I'm wondering how I can, how do I find support in my workplace for things like that? And also, I feel like I don't see people like me, immigrants, who are progressing in the corporate ladder in my office. How do I find a community in the same field, specifically asset management, specifically fintech, of Black women that are progressing? Because I feel like I am trying very hard to do that and I'm still struggling, specifically as an immigrant. And also, additionally, sorry, I didn't really structure my thoughts properly before.
That's totally fine.
And also, I feel as though, we all know that layoffs have been happening a lot. And as an immigrant, again, you know that if you're losing your job, you're going straight home. So how do you manage mentally that sort of fear and still try and kind of focus on your role, but then also, as you said, stay in the room that you're in? I feel like all the challenges that I've mentioned make it really difficult to stay in the room that I'm in, and I feel as though I want to go towards a place where I see more immigrants and see more black women progressing, especially in the finance sector. So I don't know how to stay in the room.
Thank you so much, Nachi, for those brilliant questions. I think in the interest of time, perhaps this is the only question that we can take, unless if there is just one other question, all right? So please just hold your thoughts. Patricia and Kim would get the other question so you can answer both at the same time. So I think we can just take, can we take this two? There is there and here.
Do you want me to go now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I am Hannah. Hi, everyone. I work at Meta. I look after our global ethnicity hiring. My question is more around investment in Africa, and I know there's a panel later about that. I think it's really important to strike a balance between people wanting to kind of, I guess, leave countries in Africa to come and work for big tech companies across Europe or across America. But what do you think is the I guess, advice or view that you would have on those tech companies investing in Africa and having more of a presence in Africa and like opening offices, in Kenya or in West Africa and so on in the tech hubs, and just making sure that there's a balance, that you're not like brain draining all of these countries, but also understanding that people, some people want to leave and go work in a different country. And that's definitely something that we're kind of discussing at the company. So I think it'd be great to hear that.
All right. Thank you. Please, can you leave it to 15, 20 seconds, your question? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Faiza. I'm actually a co-founder of my own tech community called Somalis in Tech. And speaking of tech communities, I want to know how tech communities like mine could contribute to work that enacts and drives policy changes that benefit black migrant communities. Obviously, so much of our work, it's about creating a network and excelling in tech, but also we want to give back. Everyone, being a diaspora community, we all want to give back. So figuring out how we can make long-lasting change is a huge thing for us.
Thank you. I think 3 fantastic questions. So how to stay in the room, how to invest in Africa, and also try to mitigate brain drain, and of course, how tech can be used to drive policy. So I'll give each of you just 1 minute to kind of like, you could either answer one of the questions or all of them, or whichever ones you're comfortable with. Just a minute, please. Patricia, do you want to go first, or Kim? You go first? Okay, Kim, all right.
Go first. Thanks for that. Thanks. In terms of staying in the space, I think for me, I recognize that this is a problem not just in your sector, but also in a lot of other sectors. And actually, that's what Spark we're trying to do, is really to look at that. We recognize that across Europe and in the UK, there's a lot of networks which are still missing that we need to have in place. And I'd love to have a chat with you about how do we create a support community around you from people who are experiencing the exact same thing as you are across Europe. So I would say, let's talk. When it comes to the brain drain, I think as INAR, what we are fighting for is to ensure that people, once they're in Europe, have a fair chance and a fair hearing. But also we recognize that it's not just about lifting Europe up at the expense of other continents. And I think for us, that's the other part which needs to be addressed and looked at, is indeed actually having the global techs investing in Africa. It's a good thing. It needs to happen. There's not enough of it happening. But we also need to ensure that that the money which is invested in Africa stays in Africa. So I think that's the other part which I would be particularly concerned about. And then when it comes to your question, I would say actually the solution is INAR. Join us. We're a network of civil society organizations. We're 150 across Europe and the UK as well. And it's what we do is precisely that: is bringing together all of these different organizations working on these very different topics together to come and become a platform and a voice of anti-racism across Europe. And actually, I think having organizations which are making the connection between the tech community and the civil society angle, that's exactly one of the reasons why we're here at Black Tech Fest, because we think there's actually a real need for that. And the more we collaborate, the more we can affect change.
Yeah, absolutely. in answering your questions and how do you stay in the room, to be honest with you, everything that you said resonates with me as a black woman because I find it that in spaces that we are, you feel like you don't belong, you're not supposed to be there, and you are constantly being, torn down, or you have imposter syndrome. But I say to you, there is value in still persisting. I know we are tired of, being the strong black woman, continue, persist, because we do get tired and we do need support. So I think absolutely, like Kim said, I think there is a way to find support around you in other, not just in your area, but with other professionals. I think that will really be helpful to make your journey in your career easy. And to say in terms of women advancing, I think that we have been saying a lot, as an immigrant mentality. Be grateful, keep your head down, don't bring attention to yourself. You are here and that's enough. But I think we should all be progressing. We should succeed and continue working on that. And just to answer you in terms of how do you use tech, to change policies. I think that I was just speaking to Kim before really about how we produce high-level policy documents sounding of nothing because they are missing an important component, which is the human component, our lives and what we go through in practical terms, pragmatically. And technology can play a great role in terms of highlighting, how those policies affect people on the ground. So absolutely stay in it and you'll be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience for listening and for participating, and of course to our two panelists, Kim and Patricia. Thank you so much. And so 3 things to keep in mind: stay in the room, change the narrative, and join forces with civil society and tech. And I think that we can go a long way. Thank you so much, everyone.